Welcome back to another episode of Tea After Midnight. Just a little series where we have some tea to keep it nice and classy, but I also tell you scary stories. So if you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah. Grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you a scary story. Because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from Holly. Hi Savannah, my name is Holly, and I have a few spooky stories for you. These all happened around my childhood home in rural southern Ontario. These stories may not be as spooky as the Appalachian stories you've told, but it is an experience that still haunts me. As long as I can remember, I've always been able to feel presences. I believe this started when I was around 2 years old. From the ages of 2 to 7, I would always tell my parents, sister, and babysitter that there was a man in my pillow. I would make a circle of my stuffed animals around me in bed to keep me safe from this pillow man. A little backstory of my childhood home. It was built sometime throughout the 1800s and is surrounded by forest, farm fields, and swamp, and it's very haunted. My parents and even guests have had creepy, unexplainable things happen in this house. My sisters and I would wake up with scratches and bruises covering our bodies, which along with other things caused my parents to bring in a priest to bless the house. This didn't work and only made things worse. They then turned to a medium to try and figure out what they were dealing with, and they were told that there were many different presences on the property and that they were angry. But going back to the pillow man part, I was getting tucked into bed one night and told my parents that they were being watched. Obviously, they questioned what I was meaning, thinking I was just making up stories in my 2-year-old brain. I proceeded to get out of bed and tell them there was a woman in my closet and mimicked how she was speaking to me. But then I told them about the man in the pillow and how his face was always contorted weird with a gaping mouth and spoke in a low growl tone, which I also mimicked. One of my older sisters was listening at this point, and she swears to this day that I was possessed. The sound that apparently came out of my mouth was so unexplainable and uncanny. This event happened in 2008. This is where this gets weird. My bedroom door was originally bare. There weren't any notches, just a plain wooden door. But after this occasion, a figure appeared on the bottom of the door. Although it may not look like much, it appeared overnight directly after my so-called possession. To me, this photo sends chills down my spine because the figure looks like a contorted face with an open, gaping mouth. This event is where I started seeing things that others could not see. Fast forward to the summer of 2020, my best friend at the time, who I'll call C, lived just down the road from me. And don't come for me about social distancing, we had sleepovers every night and we were essentially family. C and I were exploring our spirituality and had taken up meditation. I knew of this spot on our road that had a pond and almost a natural ramp up the side that brings you into the forest. My dad and I found this location while we were out picking up garbage one day, and I remember us finding a weird man-made landmarker, which we assumed was a grave for someone's pet. This location was about a 15-minute bike ride from my place, so we ventured out. We were planning on meditating and taking some photos of each other to later post on Instagram. We arrived around midday and I found a small circle-like clearing in the forest about 30 feet away from the road. We both sat down and closed our eyes. About 2 minutes into meditating, I saw clear as day us in the forest surrounded by these trees, and through the trees I could see this tall, dark figure staring at us. I instantly felt uneasy and quickly got up and yelled at C that we needed to leave. I gave her a quick rundown about the creature I saw and the danger I felt that we were in. On our way back, I could feel that we were being watched and possibly followed. We knew we couldn't go to my house since my parents weren't home and the house was already creepy enough. So we went to her place even though her mom was not there. She was supposed to get home shortly from work. For some context, she lived in a double wide with 2 doors to get inside. One had a deadbolt, and the other was a sliding door that did not have any form of latching or locking. We decided to try and distract ourselves from what just happened, which led us to getting all dressed up with makeup and jewelry. This did in fact distract us for a while. When we were done, it was dark outside. Since we had not gotten the chance to take pictures earlier, we thought now would be a good time. C said we should go outside to take some pictures on the road. After a few were taken, completely disregarding what had happened earlier, we started to hear sticks snapping and grass moving from the ditch line right beside us. Immediately, we ran back to the house thinking that whatever we encountered earlier had followed us back. We got inside and locked the door. We tried to jimmy rig the sliding door with a broomstick so that it wouldn't open. C called one of our friends and we told her everything that had happened that day. I sent our friends the pictures we had just taken and she increased the brightness on them. In one photo of me, you could see a clear black outline of a creature on its hands, elbows stuck outwards, crawling in the ditch with these white eyes staring at us. The pure nausea I felt once we saw that was awful. I made a lock to her bedroom door out of a fork and a knife to try and keep us safe. Around 40 minutes had passed and we heard her mom get home. She came to C's bedroom and we let her in and she apologized for being late and that she needed to cover a coworker's shift. Then she proceeded to ask us why the sliding door was left wide open. Still to this day I cannot explain what we saw. I don't know if it was a shadow person or something else, but I know whatever it wanted from us was not good. To this day, I have sleep paralysis dreams about this creature, and I believe part of it is still following me. Holly, darling, I'm going to need you to send me an email and let me know why you think this thing is still following you. But I just keep going back to the beginning about the Pillow Man and the picture that she sent along with it. And if you're looking at this picture, you can clearly see that there is an open, wide, gaping mouth. That is actually terrifying. And to think that before that situation had happened that night, that door was completely fine. But then you're out in the woods and you see the creature that's standing out there staring at you and you think it followed you home, that sends shivers down my spine. But the biggest mystery of all is what opened that sliding door. Because you guys got home and you jimmy rigged the door to make sure it wouldn't open, and then it opens. And I need to know immediately what did that. But Holly, if you have any updates or more information you'd like to share, I know we all would love to hear it. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them, and they do not have to be about the Appalachian Mountains. You can send it to this email on the screen or the email in the caption of this video. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have the best night. I love you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
So y'all remember when I told y'all the story about the coworker who brought that chair to my home health care haunted house job? You know, where she brought the chair and that demon was sitting in the chair. This is an extension, okay, of that story. I'm gonna tell y'all one more thing that happened at that house. So it was this man, and when I figure out the person's name, she used to watch him every single night. He's an old time singer. I think he was from like the 60s or something, but she watched his recorded live performances every night before bed. Okay, every night. So after she watched those live performances, I get her to bed and she was asleep a hot minute. Now, as far as her cable and stuff, she had cable, but she didn't have like Roku where you can look up a Prime movie and be watching it and be entertained. So I had to look on the guide. Y'all know the old school Xfinity remote, and I would click that and see what's on. There was really nothing on, but there was Insidious. Insidious was on. And I was like, okay. So I turned it on. I'm not bothered by it. I'm sitting there. Now, the Tiptoe song came on. Y'all know, Tiptoe on a run. That song. I was so scared, not because the demon in the movie was dancing, but because I heard squeaking on the floor while the song was going on. Now, mind you, this woman had just had hip surgery. Okay? She had just had hip surgery a month before I started working there. So I just know she not up just walking. I just wheeled her in there and had to pivot her to the bed. So I turned around and I said, I know I hear creaks in this floor. I get up, and her house is so small, so as soon as I get up from the couch, to the left is the hallway, and I can look right down the hall, and her bed was right there. I turn and I look, and she down there dancing to the Tiptoe song. Her family says she ain't walked in so long. So why is your granny and your mama down here dancing to the Tiptoe song from Insidious? That scared me. So after I got her back to bed after that whole Tiptoe scary crap, She was trying so hard to get me to her basement. She was like, my basement is really nice. You should go down there and take a load off and stuff, to go ahead and take a break or something and go down my basement. I was like, I'm not really a basement person. I said, it's okay. I really don't care for basements. She was explaining to me everything that was down there. But then her daughter called me, which I thought was weird. Her daughter calls me on the house phone. I answered the house phone, and her daughter was like, hey, just in case you didn't know, mom has some clothes in the dryer down the basement. Can you go down there and fold the clothes up for me? That's a part of my job, so I had to go down the basement to get the clothes. While I'm down the basement, throwing the stuff out the dryer into the hamper, I hear the movie, like, back at the same part. I was like, I don't remember Tiptoe being in two parts of the movie. I thought that was weird. I thought it was really weird, especially since I had the movie on mute after I found her dancing to it in the hallway. So the Tiptoe song is going while I'm in the basement. Y'all ain't never ran up a flight of stairs so quick in my entire life. Do you hear me? Fast. Quickly. By morning, when it was time for the person to relieve me, I had already written out my report. I'm not staying to give you a report. You're not going to get a verbal report. I've written out my report and I'm leaving. Because that whole Tiptoe thing, I don't even like the song now. Okay? So when it comes on, I get creeped out. I wrote that report, and as soon as the person came in to relieve me, I handed it to him and I said, have a good day. And I left.
Hello and welcome back to the series of spooky stories, The Haunted Tea Spill. This series is brought to you by all things spooky and ungodly amounts of paranormal activity. Initial necklace as per usual. I literally get compliments on it all the time, and I legitimately wear it like every single fucking day. It's down here if you want it. Now onto the story. When I was a teenager, I lived with my mother, my stepdad, and a family friend. My stepdad was my mother's childhood sweetheart that came back as an adult as her soulmate. My mother's house has a layout that puts my room at the end of a curved hall, and the kitchen is on the opposite side of the house. One day I got home from school and I was in the house alone. My parents were at work until 5 and the family friend worked later. I did my chores as I was supposed to before I was allowed on electronics. When I was done, I went to my room and got on the computer. I always close my door because I've always been jumpy and scared of people being behind me without my knowledge. Same. And my desktop was on the wall in front of the door. I know that sounds confusing, but the wall to the other side of the room that's in front of the door, just in case anyone says something. So my back would face the door. I put in earbuds in both ears to play loud rock music at full volume. I don't give a fuck that I am at home. I do not ever put both headphones in. Never. We're never safe out here. While I read because it helped me avoid distraction. After 30 minutes, it was around 4:45, and I heard my stepdad call me out of my room, clearly. Like he was standing right behind me. Like I wasn't wearing both earbuds full of screaming music. I took my headphones out, a little spooked, and I turned around. My door was slightly open. I got up and walked out, assuming that my stepdad had opened the door and walked back out in the hallway. I walked through the living room, but I didn't check out the window for his car. He was in the kitchen and he asked if I had done my chores before getting on the computer. I did, so I affirmed that, and I went to sit in the living room because he'd usually watch a couple of episodes of a show with me when we were alone. I didn't consider how it was before 5. Oh my God. While I was waiting for him to change into his comfy clothes, my stepdad came in the front door with my mom. Bitch. Fuck no. This experience never repeated, but my stepdad's family told me that they had experienced so many impossible events surrounding him, and he was a paranormal investigator as a young adult. He quit that before meeting my mother again. As a bonus, he hated my phone. I like to read books on my phone instead of playing outside. The day that he passed away, I took a shower in the hotel bathroom to calm down, and my phone was playing music on the counter. It somehow coincidentally fell off the counter, and the screen went black but didn't crack or break. So I was stuck in a hotel for the night with nothing to read and no way to contact anybody. I had to buy a new phone when I got home, and we still joke that it was his last attempt to get me off the phone. That's sad as fuck. But that other experience, how are we just gonna end it right where you said that your stepdad and your mom walked in? Did you tell them? What was that conversation? Did they go check and make sure that there was not a fucking stranger in your home? Or something? You know what I mean? Anything? What the fuck? Anywho, rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being the least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most. If you have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I will see you all at the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
What would you do if you were house sitting in the middle of nowhere, let the dogs out in the middle of the night, and then see a woman standing at the edge of the woods just staring at you. This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about a woman who was house sitting and said that it turned into a night that she still can't fully talk about. I still think about it every time I let my own dog out at night. I was 23, a family my aunt knew needed someone to watch their house and 2 dogs while they were out of town for a few days. I've met them before. They were a nicer older couple, lived about 20 minutes outside of town, not in the middle of nowhere exactly, but far enough out that the houses were spread apart. And once the sun went down, it got that kind of dark that city people aren't ready for. First day was completely normal. The dogs were easy and the house was comfortable. The backyard ran straight back to a tree line, and the owners mentioned the dogs liked one last trip outside before bed. Just watch from the porch because they sometimes like to chase things into the woods. The second night is when it happened. Around 10:30 p.m., I opened the back door, stepped out onto the concrete patio with the porch light on, and let them out. The dogs ran a few yards out, and then both of them just stopped. They weren't barking, and they weren't running. They stopped and stared toward the tree line. I looked where they were looking, and there was a woman standing right there where the grass met the woods. My first thought was that it was a neighbor, someone older who had wandered onto the property, which already made no sense given the time and how far out we were. But the longer I looked, the more wrong it felt. The woman was thin in a way that looked bad. Arms too narrow, a white dress or nightgown hanging off her like it was made for someone bigger, and she was completely still, not swaying, not shifting her weight, just standing there looking back at us. Then I saw her face. Something dark was running down from her mouth. It looked thick and black in the porch light. I couldn't tell if it was blood or something else, and I still haven't been able to decide. The dogs started backing up and whining. I grabbed them both by the collars and got inside and locked the door and went straight to the kitchen window. And the yard was empty. I checked every door in the house, locked the ones that were already locked again anyway. I thought about calling the owners but couldn't figure out how to say it without sounding like I was losing my mind. So I brought the dogs upstairs, and then I got in bed and I lay there in the dark trying to slow my breathing down. Somewhere after midnight, the doorbell rang. 3 times in a row. Both dogs went stiff and started growling, low and steady, which I hadn't heard from either of them before. I went downstairs and looked through the peephole. Nobody was there. I stood at the door watching it, thinking maybe someone had stepped off the side, but the porch was small, and there wasn't really anywhere to go. I was still standing there when the bell rang again. I was looking through the peephole when it happened. Still nobody there. I stepped back from the door, and that's when I heard the back door open, then close. I want to be clear about this part. Not a creak, not a house settling, not something I convinced myself I heard. It was so specific, the mechanical sound of the door opening and then swinging shut. I ran upstairs with the dogs and I called 911. Police came and searched the whole house, the garage, the yard, all the way to the tree line. But nothing. There was nobody. The back door was locked when they checked it. One of the officers suggested I might have scared myself being alone out there. I didn't argue about any of it. I just waited for them to leave and sat up the rest of the night on the bed with both dogs pressed against me and every light on in the room. In the morning, I took the dogs out because I had to, and there were footprints on the patio. Bare feet, narrow, starting at the edge of the patio and crossing towards the back door. They stopped right at the door. I took a photo and sent it to the owners and told them I thought someone had been in the yard and that I wasn't comfortable staying another night. They cut the trip short and came home that afternoon. I never told them what I actually saw, and I said I thought I heard someone outside and got spooked. That was all I gave them. I was in the car and gone before dark. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
I just heard you talking. Can you do it again?
And I absolutely shit my pants when this happened to me, so let's talk about it. If you're new here, hi, I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and I have talked about the story before. But to anyone new here, in 2022, I heard my boyfriend's voice when he was, in fact, not there. Explain. Long story short, I was home from college, I was typing a paper out, I had my back faced towards his parents' dining room table. They were sitting in front of me in their sunken living room. And I distinctly remember they had gotten a wood wick candle. Now, if you don't know what this is, it's a normal candle, but the wick is wooden, so it makes this crackling noise like firewood. They'd been raving about it all week. I finally was able to come home and see this candle and listen to it as they're watching their movie. I was writing a paper for one of my classes, and from behind me in the dining room, I hear, "Hey, Lane." So I immediately turn my head. I look back to the dining room, and it is dark. It was around October-ish, so it was getting dark at around 5 p.m. As you can imagine, the light fading very quickly from the dining room made this situation a little scarier. But I get up from the table, I walk towards the dining room, and I call out to him. And I say, "Yeah, what is it?" Walk into the dining room, no one there. Their dining room is connected to like a sitting room. The lights are also off in the sitting room. I call out to him again. And this time, panic starts to set into my body, but it doesn't really hit me on what's happening until I look upstairs. I see his bedroom light on. And at this point, I'm like, there's no way that this man is upstairs in his room, and like called out for me and then ran upstairs. So I walk with my back turned towards the table that I was just sitting at, back through the sitting room, through the dining room, back to the table, and I text him. He comes downstairs and immediately is asking me what's wrong because I guess all of the color in my face had drained. And I just said, "That's not funny. You scared me. I heard you calling me from the dining room." And he says, "Elena, I've been in my room this whole time while you've been typing your paper." I didn't want to scare his parents, so I kept my voice down. I said, "No, I know what I heard, and it was your voice." At this point, I had experienced paranormal activity before, but nothing that was auditory like that. I chalked this experience up to my mind just playing tricks on me and moved on. Now, months passed at this point. We were scheduled to visit his parents on this day, months later from the initial incident. I walk into his house and his dad jokingly says, "Hey, I gotta talk to you." And obviously I was like, "Yeah, what is it about?" And I shit you not, he says, "I know exactly what you're talking about." At this point, like I said, months had passed at this point and I had no idea what he was talking about. He said, "I heard Andrew's voice too." So what's crazy about the situation is in October, when I initially heard this voice, they did not have the dog that they adopted. But at the time that his dad heard his son's voice, he did have this dog, and the dog also heard it. And the way that the situation was explained to me was, dad was up late at night in the living room with the dog, heard the garage door open and someone say, "Hey, I'm home," and walk into the bathroom directly next to the garage door. The dog gets up and walks towards the bathroom to see who it is. And his dad says that he clearly heard Andrew's voice. Gets worried for Andrew after it had been like 10 to 15 minutes. Gets up, walks over. There's no one there. The door is open. The lights are off. Nobody's home. He walks upstairs, opens Andrew's bedroom door. No one's there. No one is laying in his bed. And that is because Andrew was staying at my place. And none of us ever heard that voice ever again. I don't think the experience that I had 4 years ago at this point was the scariest part of it, and the fact that it's a shared experience with his dad. I think the scariest part about this is the fact that the dog heard it, because at that point, not only does it legitimize the fact that there is someone calling out to you, it legitimizes the fact that it sounds like your son. I would be lying if I said I wasn't scared that it was going to happen again or with another person's voice.
Story time about the horrific thing that this man found in his home after he had 4 construction workers come to his house to work on it. The person wants to be anonymous, so we're gonna call him Carlos. "Hi, I've been watching your content for a while, and I feel like you're the only person I can send this to without being judged. I swear I'm not crazy, but I still can explain what happened. I live in an area where houses are constantly being expanded, so there's constantly construction going on. I decided to personally supervise some repairs on my terrace and part of my roof. I used to work in construction, so I know how some workers will cut corners in order to finish fast. I asked my nephew to hire a crew. He told me that they would arrive at around 10 in the morning, but they ended up showing up early. From the moment I saw them, something about them just felt off. They didn't talk to each other, they didn't laugh, they didn't conversate, they just worked quietly. One of them actually really stood out to me. His movements were like very stiff and not human-like. I also noticed that there was this stench, like this horrific smell coming from him. Like he smelled like sulfur. It was so strong that it actually started to make me sick. A few minutes later, they start hammering, but it wasn't normal. It was loud, heavy, and constant, and I could feel it through the walls, like it was coming from inside the house itself. I went outside and asked them what they were doing, and the one that smelled like sulfur just looked at me and said they were testing the structure. And then just for a second, I saw something standing behind them, but it was like a silhouette, like a dark silhouette of like human-like figure standing behind them. That's when I realized that something about them just wasn't right, and I told them to stop immediately, and I ended up having to step away to get some fresh air because the stench around them was just overwhelming. When I went back inside, one of them looked at me and said that they had to leave. I didn't argue, I just opened the door and I let them go. They were only at my house for about 10 minutes, but those were the longest 10 minutes of my life. About 20 minutes later, my nephew showed up with 4 construction workers. I asked him if he had sent anyone earlier, and my nephew said no. That's when I started to panic, and I thought maybe something had been stolen, but instead something had been left behind. One of the workers called me over and said that hidden behind the materials for the renovation, there was some sort of like ritual looking objects. It was a deer's head tied with this black like string all around it, and photos of my daughters. I have never had problems with anyone, and I don't understand why someone would do something like this to my family. My first instinct was to grab everything and throw it away, but one of the workers actually stopped me and said that he had a tia that was a curandera that was gonna come and take care of it at no charge. But till this day, I still don't know who those 4 initial men were and what was the reason behind it and who sent them to do this to me and my family. I have an idea what they were trying to do, but like always, what do you guys think?
When I was 6 years old, my father travelled constantly for work. He was a pilot, and every time he came home, he brought gifts or treasures from places I could barely pronounce. Usually, they were harmless things. Dolls with stiff plastic smiles, collectible lunchboxes with Minnie Mouse printed on them. Bright, safe, familiar.
Yeah.
But one night, he brought something different. He just returned from Japan. He placed the box on the kitchen table with a strange expression, half amused, half uncertain, and told us he'd found something unique. Inside was a monkey. A cymbal-clapping monkey. The kind you've probably seen before. Brown fur, red vest, wide, painted grin. Metal cymbals frozen mid-clap. It was battery-powered. You had to press a button to make it move. At least that's how it was supposed to work. My sister, who was 9 at the time, didn't like it from the moment she saw it. She said its eyes looked too real, too aware. I, on the other hand, was fascinated. We lived in Norway, so our toys were boring dolls and Sylvanian family figurines. Nothing like this, nothing so animated. We brought it upstairs to our shared bedroom in the loft. The loft is important for later. It sat at the very top of the house, accessible only by a narrow staircase that creaked under the slightest weight. We played with the monkey for a while, pressed the button, and it clapped in a quick, cheerful rhythm. Its head jerked side to side mechanically, cymbals crashing together in sharp metallic bursts. Clap, 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 and silence. That night, after dinner, my mum came upstairs and made a point of turning it off herself. I remember the distinct click of the switch. She placed it carefully in the toy box, shut the lid, and told us to get some sleep. The house grew quiet. I don't know what time it was when my sister shook me awake. The room was dark, except for the faint blue glow from the window. She was leaning over me, her face pale, not annoyed, not teasing, but terrified. She put her mouth close to my ear and whispered, barely audible, "Marie, I can hear the monkey." I groaned at first. My siblings loved scaring me. But when I looked at her properly, I felt something inside me drop. Her eyes weren't playful, they were wet. We both held our breath. And then I heard it. Clap. A long pause. Clap. It was faint, metallic, deliberate. Not the fast, cheerful rhythm from earlier either. This was slower, measured. Clap. Pause. Clap. It wasn't coming from inside our room. It was coming from outside the door.
Oh no.
Our bedroom door stood at the top of the staircase, and beyond it was nothing but the narrow steps leading down into darkness, and somewhere on those stairs, clap, was the monkey. We didn't want to move. The idea of opening that door felt impossible, but going down to our mum meant facing whatever was making that sound. The clapping continued, slow, patient, as if it knew we were awake. My sister grabbed my hand and pulled me towards the door. My legs felt numb. She turned the handle slowly, so slowly the metal barely made a sound, and opened it just enough to see through the crack. The staircase was dim and the shadows were stretching along the walls. And there it was. The monkey. Not in the toy box, not upstairs. It was sitting on the top step, directly facing our door. Clap. Its cymbals met softly this time. Clap. Its head moved in short, jerky motions, but the rhythm was wrong. Too spaced out, too intentional, like it wasn't performing. Like it was waiting. For us. I stared at its face, at that painted smile, and I could swear its glass eyes shifted upward, towards the crack in the door, towards us, watching. Clap. My sister slammed the door shut. She started crying immediately, and I did too. My whole body was shaking so badly, I thought I might faint. The clapping stopped. For a moment. The silence was worse. Clap, clap, closer, faster. Clap, clap, clap. It was moving. We didn't speak. We didn't even plan. My sister suddenly stood up, grabbed my wrist, and flung the door open. The monkey was only a few steps down now. Clap, 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 clap. The rhythm was speeding up. The cymbals were crashing violently in the narrow stairwell. The sound echoed off the walls, filling the loft. My sister screamed and kicked it as hard as she could. The monkey tumbled down the staircase, hitting step after step, its cymbals clanging wildly as it fell. And we ran. Down the stairs, past it, across the living room, straight to our mum. She didn't believe us at first, but we were hysterical, shaking, barely able to form sentences. We told her it had moved, that it was waiting for us, that it sped up when we ran. We swore on everything. She checked the stairs. The monkey was lying at the bottom, silent, off. We slept in her bed that night. The next morning, the three of us walked upstairs together, slowly, carefully. When we opened the toy box, it was inside, neatly placed, exactly where my mum had left it, with the switch off, facing upward, smiling. My mum didn't argue after that. She threw it in the bin the same day, and we never saw it again. But weeks later, when the house was quiet and the loft felt too still, my sister and I would lie awake, staring at the door, and sometimes, very faintly from the other side, clap, pause, clap. Thank you for taking time to read our story. It happened 12 years ago, and we're both adults now. However, we still talk about the incident, and we've never got a good explanation for it. I love watching your podcast, and I hope you guys get to read it out.
All right, this is the most intense cryptid story from the Appalachia I have ever heard. Oh, side note, how do you pronounce it? Appalachia or Appalachian? Because where I'm from, we actually refer to them as the Appalachian Mountains. But anytime I hear about them on TikTok, everyone says Appalachia. So that's how I pronounce it for the majority. Anyway, let's get into it. So one of my followers, their name is Jaylyn, tells this story from when they were 6 years old. So they're actually from the Philippines, but during this time, the parents had moved them to the Appalachia Mountains. They made note that during the first month, everything was fine living there. They even looked up the rules of the Appalachia, and if you know, you know, and they were abiding by them very closely. So they weren't very concerned. One night while they were eating dinner, the curtains hadn't been closed for the night, and Jaylyn looked up and saw something outside the window. It was a white, slender figure with its mouth open wide, full of sharp teeth. The texture of its skin were like fish scales. Its ears were pointy and sharp, and its eyes were dark and wide, almost like void of actually having eyeballs. So immediately they tell their parents, but by the time that everybody looked, it was gone. So they just brushed it off, claiming that they were probably just seeing things. So now it's bedtime, and the father goes and he locks all the doors and pulls thick black curtains in front of every window. Jaylyn and mom were already in the bedrooms. Jaylyn in the bed, and the mother folding some clothing and putting it away in the closet. And then Jaylyn notices something else. The cross that hung near to the closet was upside down. So they immediately tell the mother, and she looks at it, and everybody's really stressed out. So she calls down to the father, but he doesn't respond, which is really weird and unlike him. So the mother quickly goes down to get him, leaving Jaylyn alone in bed. They're just sitting there, very scared, hoping that nothing else goes wrong. And then all of a sudden, Coming from the window in front of Jaylyn, there was loud banging behind that thick black curtain. Something or someone was trying to get in. So Jaylyn calls for mom, and she comes flying back up in the room. And this banging is so loud, it sounds like the window is going to break. So the mother and Jaylyn hide underneath the bed, and the father hides underneath a thick black wooden table that sat next to the bed. And then the window shatters and breaks open, and this thing thumps inside the room. They hear the sounds of its footsteps kind of searching for them, and Jaylyn sees its feet covered in scales, and it had long, sharp brown claws. So they are remaining dead silent in their hiding places as this thing lumbers through the room, and when it finally leaves, they can breathe a sigh of relief. So Jaylyn's father grabs a big plank of wood and sort of barricades off that broken window. The mother calms them down, and the father and mother stay up guarding the place while Jaylyn tries to get some sleep. So the next morning, everybody wakes up early, and the mother is cooking breakfast, and the father is trying to do as much research as possible about the Appalachian Mountains and what the heck that thing could have been. They are all so shaken and terrified from what happened and in disbelief, because for that first month, everything was fine. So Jaylyn says that for the next 3 months, this creature kept on returning to their home. Every time it would come around, it was always exactly at midnight, and it would be pounding on the windows as if it were demanding to get in. So after the 3 months of these recurring visits of this creature, they decided that they are just going to go back home to the Philippines. Even to this day, they are still all very freaked out about it. How freaking traumatizing. Jaylyn still has nightmares about this thing. Jaylyn hopes that telling this story might help out other families who could be in danger of experiencing something similar. Have you ever heard of anything that fit that description before? Let us know in the comments. I'm sure Jaylyn will be in there reading them. And if you have your own creepy Appalachia story, I would love to hear it. And if you're new here, you gotta follow for more creepy story time.
This story takes place outside of Chicago, Illinois. There was this older gentleman. He was driving one night on a rural highway outside of Chicago, and he said there was nothing but cornfields and a few houses here and there, but he was completely alone. He said there was no other cars on the road. So, he started to get bored. He turned on his radio. And as he's listening to his radio, he said, like the radio started to go haywire, and it was changing stations by itself, and it was turning off and on. And he had no clue as to what was happening. So all of a sudden he heard a put, 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 put sound, and his car broke down. He managed to veer over into the shoulder, and he gets on his phone. He calls a tow truck. Now, as he's sitting in his car, he said he heard a loud banging sound on the driver's side window. When he looks out the window, he sees a group of teenagers all wearing these black hoodies that are, covering their face to where he couldn't see them. And they are moving kind of erratically on the side of the vehicle. So he slightly rolls down his window, and he's like, "Yeah, can I help you?" And he said one of these teenagers was like, "Give us a ride." And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, my car's broke down. And they're like, "Listen, man, give us a ride." And he said like they had this just weird, deep, kind of piercing voice. And he said, "No, get away from my car. Like, you guys need to leave now. The tow truck's coming. Like, there's going to be people here, so you need to back away." And he said after that, they started to get kind of angry, and they were kind of like taunting him and calling him names and stuff like that, and yelling at him and telling him to get out of the vehicle. And he just kept saying, "Get away from my car, get away from my car, someone's coming." Well, all of a sudden, he said one of these teenagers jumps up on the hood of his car and starts bouncing up and down, and they're screaming and making these weird sounds. So he looks in his back seat, and he finds like a tire iron, and he goes out of his vehicle, and he's like, "Look, get off my car right now. You kids need to leave. Like, get out of here, like, or there's going to be problems." And he said all of them sort of started huddling around him and trying to get close. And he said they just started mocking him and laughing. And one of them picked up rocks and started hitting him with these small little stones. And they told him, "You're all alone. You're out here all alone. Like, no one's going to hear you. No one's going to find you." And he started to get freaked out. He noticed, though, when he looked down, none of them were wearing any shoes. Like, they were barefoot, which was weird because there was snow on the ground. It was like freezing cold, yet they were all barefoot. He said one of them then approached him from the side, and when he turned, he kind of swung the tire iron. And as he swung, he said he looked and could see now this teenager's face. And he said, it just had almost like a pale white, rubbery looking skin with these solid black eyes. and he knew something was off. So he said he dropped the tire iron and he took off running as fast as he could. They started chasing after him, and they were screaming and shouting, like throwing rocks at him. And he's like, for sure they're gonna get me, they're gonna get me. But he manages to find like a house. He runs up to the door, he starts banging on the door. This old man answers, and he says, like, I'm being chased by these teenagers, like, I need your help. So he said the guy went inside, grabbed a firearm, and he went out, and they started trying to find these teenagers. They couldn't find them anywhere. And he said the weird thing was, when he got back to his vehicle and the guy was with him, they could not find any sort of footprints to show that like they were even there or which way they had went. So he got back in his car, and when the tow truck finally arrived, like, he was glad to be out of there. And he said he knew that what he encountered that day was not human.
There's a place in Denver, Colorado that's known as Riverdale Road, and it is probably one of the most haunted roads in America. It's known from everything from demons to skinwalkers to ghosts. This is one road I would not want to drive alone at night. Now, this story comes from a young man named Kevin who lived in Denver for a few years. He said one night he just was bored and he decided he was just going to drive around town. So he gets in his car and he doesn't really have a particular destination. He just figured, he would let the night take him where he would drive to. So as he's driving, he just would get this feeling like, I should turn this way, I should take this exit, I should head in this direction. And it leads him to Riverdale Road. So as he's driving down Riverdale, he gets to this part where there is train tracks. And he just starts getting this weird, creepy feeling like something is watching him. And part of him wants to find the nearest road he can turn off onto and get off this road. But something is intriguing to him and makes him want to stay on this road. So as he's driving, all of a sudden, his radio turns on by itself. And the song Imagine Dragons, Demons starts playing by itself. And he turns the radio off, but the radio continues to play. And so he starts, kind of banging on the, like, what's going on with, what's happening with the CD player. And finally, it turns off. So he thinks, okay, maybe there's some kind of electrical problems or something. But he keeps on driving. Well, all of a sudden, he starts to get that feeling once again, like he's being watched. And he feels like there's someone sitting in the back seat. When he turns around and looks, he can see two red eyes staring at him from the back seat. He can't see a body, he can't see a person. It's just completely dark. And there's two red eyes staring at him. So Kevin is just kind of, at this point, freaked out and doesn't know what to do. And he keeps looking back and the eyes are still there. So he starts talking to these eyes and he says, look, I don't know who you are or what you want from me. I'm sorry I came on this road. I'll get off if you want. And he looks back again and boom, the eyes are gone. There's no one back there. So Kevin, is like, it's time to get off this road. But as he kept driving, he would turn off onto a street and he would find himself back on Riverdale Road. And no matter how many times he turned or where he exited, he couldn't get off this road. So he pulls over and he gets on his cell phone and he starts trying to call his friend to see, if he could come meet him there and help him figure out how to get off this road. But his phone isn't working. And he's getting no service, which he thinks is weird because he, most places in Denver, he gets service and he never had an issue with his phone. So as he's sitting there in his phone, he all of a sudden sees a shadow out of the corner of his eye. And a man walks up to the side of his car and he can't see his face. He can't see the upper part of him because he's, standing up over the car. But the man bends down and he looks into the window and he can see the man has red eyes and this just pale face. And the man touches the window and all of a sudden, he could see smoke coming from this guy's hand as he touches the window. And so Kevin just slams on the gas and just starts, speeding off down the road. And he remembers this prayer that his mom taught him when he was younger. And he starts saying this prayer over and over again. And finally he sees a road he can turn onto, and he turns off onto this road. And he manages to get off of Riverdale Road. and he said he will never drive on that road or near that road ever again. We've just had a recent Mothman sighting. Actually, two. Now, these were reported to me that happened within the same general time frame of last week. This first report comes out of Bloomington, Illinois at ISU near Williams Hall. Now, we had a witness who wishes to remain anonymous. They said they were walking late one night near Williams Hall when they seen what appeared to be a man or something standing on one of the buildings. They said when they looked closely, whatever this was appeared to have glowing bright red eyes. And at the time, they thought maybe this was a Halloween prank until whatever this was took off into the sky with large flapping wings and headed east across town. The second report comes out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, near the Safe Harbor Trail. There was a man, an older gentleman, who was walking his dog late Thursday night when he said his dog alerted to something and started barking. When he looked closely up on this hill, he seen something standing there that looked kind of like a man, but had glowing red eyes and large wings. And whatever this was, it made a large screeching howl and then took off directly into the sky. So, have you seen any Mothman sightings recently or heard of any? Please feel free to drop them in the comments or send me a message.
They rely on your grief and they eat it on the way out. Lip gloss on so I can run this mouth. Now focus. Scary story time. Fright Night Files. A lot of you might not even know that this job is still a thing, but in New Orleans, there's this occupation called a professional mourner, where you go to someone's funeral and you grieve for the family. Celestine had been to over 400 funerals. She'd been doing this for a long time, and she said that it was just really easy. You don't cry, scream, throw yourself on the floor. It's not a big production. The best professional mourners are the ones that don't pretend to have grief. They borrow the grief of the family. She'd been doing this so often that she said she could tell the difference in how the person had passed away by how the funeral home smelled, which is very interesting. She said that you could tell if they left quickly or if it was like a long sickness or something like that. But she got called for this one family that lived on Esplanade Avenue, which is a really fancy area. And she didn't want to say who the family was, but apparently there's this little chapel off of that, I guess, where they have small funerals. The family called and said, "Hey, listen, we found out about you by a friend of a friend. We need you to come to my husband's funeral because he's been estranged from his family. There's only going to be about 8 of us there. If you could take over the grief load rather than us, we would really appreciate it." Celestine agrees to go. She said immediately when she got there, she knew she shouldn't be there because something was off from outside. She gets in and she said that it was really heavy, but not heavy sadness. This was something that was different. Service was a closed casket, and she said that was really unusual because when someone hires a professional mourner, that's just not the thing, that the casket's always open. But it was closed this time. While she's sitting there, the guy that had passed, his wife is sitting up front and she's crying into a handkerchief. She looks up, turns and looks at Celestine, and she mouths something. She says something with her mouth, but no words. So Celestine's looking at her and she says, before Celestine could even respond, they started this service, right? So she's sitting there trying to do what she does when all of a sudden she feels something standing behind her. And she said it felt like they were looking at her with no eyes. I don't even know, but no. She tries to open up, do her thing, whatever. And she said it felt like the grief was not being pushed towards the casket, it was coming from the casket out, which she did not know what to do with that had never happened to her before. She said that what she normally does in her mind is she opens a door a little bit to let the grief in, but then she can control the door. This had something with its hand pushing on it, not letting her shut it. And she said it didn't feel aggressive. It just felt patient, which really made her uncomfortable. So she gets up and she goes to the back and just stands there. And she said she completely voided herself out, no emotion, no anything. She didn't want anything to do with it. After the funeral, the dead guy's wife comes up to her and says, "Thank you for stopping it when you did." She just looks at her "What are you talking about?" She's "What did you say? Did you say don't let it in?" The lady was just "What?" She leans into Celestine and says, "Don't come back to a closed casket. They rely on the grief. They eat it on the way out." Who's they? The ones that have decided they don't want to leave yet. Celestine left and said she was never doing it again, and I don't blame her, but what was that?
A 19-year-old man in Florida was just arrested because he made a list of convicted sex offenders and murdered one. I want you to listen to how the news is covering this story, because to me, he performed a public service.
The man arrested in this case isn't just accused of murder. He's accused of targeting sex offenders, cutting up their bodies, and saving microscope slides with their DNA. People online are comparing this to the show Dexter. I talked with a forensic psychiatrist who said the same thing.
Lucas Jones had originally been brought in for disposing of human remains, but a new arrest warrant describes not just a horrible murder, but something allegedly targeted and planned, with evidence alleged to show future targets too. His arrest report accuses him of printing out a list of convicted sex offenders who lived near him and picking Cody Lee Daniel. Police say Jones told his girlfriend he killed Daniel with a baseball bat, used a cleaver saw and knife to dismember him, placed the body parts in separate suitcases and bags, then hid them in the compound, but not before keeping a microscope slide with biological matter.
I don't know, man. I'm not usually one to condone murder, but if you're going after sex offenders, especially if their targets were children, I don't see an issue personally. What's the matter? Are you afraid he's going to go after politicians next if you leave him on the street? I do find it interesting that the reason he got messed up and ultimately was arrested was because he just had to run his mouth to his girlfriend, and I believe his girlfriend told on him. I personally wouldn't feel threatened if I knew there was a man on the streets that was only hunting sex offenders and getting rid of them. Honestly, if I had children, that would make me just feel safer. But what do I know? I want to hear your thoughts on this. I also find it interesting that a person connected to this case commented that he believes we will find more bodies on the compound as it is developed into whatever they're making it into. Because right now, it's just a barren area that was hit by blight. That's a really weird, bold assumption to make, that we're going to end up finding more bodies there. He's either in bed with the developers or he knows something. But yeah, my personal opinion, if this man that he murdered really was a sex offender, Lucas Jones didn't do anything wrong. Our system is seriously broken. Why are so many convicted sex offenders allowed back on the street? Why are these judges and defense attorneys and whoever else allowing this to happen? If the system is going to fail the weak and vulnerable of our communities, then we're going to have vigilantes take it into their own hands to fix the problem. As a rape survivor, that's my opinion. But what do you think?
Weird Spooky Watsonville. So many of you have been asking me to cover the Flamingo Club in Watsonville for probably close to a year now. The one that used to sit on Main Street, which is now a Chipotle. And what really caught my attention about this story wasn't just the requests. It was the messages you guys have been sending me. Multiple messages from people saying that their uncle was there, their dad was there, some family member of theirs was there and witnessed this incident. And the story they all kept coming back to was about a woman. So the story goes that this woman walked into the Flamingo Club in Watsonville in the 90s. And immediately everyone noticed her. She was beautiful, not just attractive, but really beautiful. Basically like the kind of presence that just shifts a room. Men were trying to buy her drinks and dance with her, but she wasn't interested. Eventually, she made her way onto the dance floor all by herself. And people started watching her. Not like casually watching her, but mesmerized by her. She started dancing, at first very controlled, and then she began to spin. Faster and faster and faster, until people said she was spinning so fast that her feet weren't even touching the ground anymore. She was basically like floating. And then suddenly she just dropped. She collapsed on the floor, and just like that, everything stopped. Obviously, people rushed in, someone called for help. By the time the police arrived, she was gone. No one saw that if someone had taken her. No one saw where she went at all. And just like that, it was like it never happened. No report, no record, just no trace of this. Basically just a room full of people who all saw the same thing. When I first heard this, I was like, okay, that's like a super creepy local story. So I started digging, doing my research, and I found something strange. Apparently there wasn't just one Flamingo Club. There was another one in Stockton, California. In the 90s, people were telling a story that sounded really familiar. In 1995, there was a newspaper called The Record, and this is what they reported. Basically, that hundreds of people in Stockton in the Flamingo nightclub said that they all saw the same thing. So they say that it was like on or around Father's Day, and this man walked into the Flamingo Club. And right away, people noticed him. charismatic, magnetic, and he was covered in jewelry. Basically the kind of person who pulls attention without even trying. And at some point during the night, he asked the woman to dance with him. She said yes, so they stepped onto the dance floor. There's music playing, people around them. Nothing unusual at first. Till mid-dance, she looked down, realized his feet weren't even touching the ground. He was hovering and she screamed. And instantly, the entire club went dark. No music, no lights, just darkness. And when the lights came back on, the woman was on the floor. She was covered in red fluid, and it was described as she was like viciously cut up. Obviously, the police were called, and when they arrived, all these people were like trying to tell them what happened. They arrested him and put him in the back of the car. When they went back to check on him, he was gone. There were no broken doors, there was no way he could have escaped, and in fact, the handcuffs were still sitting in the back seat. And again, there's no record of this. There's no confirmed police reports of a man escaping like that. And in Watsonville, there's no record of a woman unaliving in a club and then disappearing. No homicide reports, no investigations, nothing. But yet people remember it. In Stockton, people will still tell you that someone danced with the devil. Here in Watsonville, people will tell you about the woman who spun so fast that she collapsed. Same decade, same type of place, both called the Flamingo Club. And this is exactly why I love local lore. It's never just like one clean story. It shifts, it changes, it shows up in different places, but the core of it always stays the same. How does a story like this start? Why are there no records for having so many people saying that they witnessed this themselves? Was it just a rumor? Was it something being covered up? Whether it was a man or a woman, people remember seeing something that did not make sense. In 2 different cities, in 2 different clubs with the exact same name. Now I'm wondering, are Flamingo clubs hiding something? More importantly, are there other Flamingo clubs in the 90s where something similar happened? Because if this story shows up in more than one place, maybe it wasn't just a story to begin with. If you've heard this story before, or if you have a family member that says they witnessed it, please send it my way. Because I have a feeling that this goes a little deeper than we think.
Hoi, it's story time. Boom, boom, it's story time. Boom, boom, paranormal Chicago active. We, Cat G. That's me. Hey, y'all. And a recap. Papa needed to go recharge in his mental space. But the bad Papa had control of him. Good Papa didn't know that he was under a trance. Bad Papa out here calling shots with the bad vampire man who trying to kill all the humans off because they sick of the humans taking over all the space on the earth. Of course, I'm the one who find them. And of course, I'm the one who got to figure out which is the good Papa and the bad Papa. And I'm not going to fraud you. Bitch, I do not know. Both of these niggas finna get blasted. You heard what the hell I said? I can't tell the damn difference. The spell that I'm finna use is gonna get rid of the bad Papa, and the good Papa, he gonna be hurt for a little while, but that's just a little bit of damage we gonna have to deal with. Boom. In come Miss Evangeline. She say something freaky to the Papas. The good Papa is like, yeah, bitch, you know your man, bitch. And the bad Papa is like, y'all are fucking disgusting. And Miss Evangeline was like, yeah, you, bye, bitch. Threw some lavender liquid shit all over the bad Papa. He went up in flames. Next thing you know, we here. Boom. Water just started spilling from the goddamn sip. I'm talking about room filling up fast as hell. I'm panicking. How the hell we get the fuck out of here? Miss Evangeline and Papa just standing there kissing and smoochy, smoochy, smoochy. You nasty bitches. Tell me how the fuck we get out of here. Miss Evangeline gonna tell me something. It ain't nowhere for us to go. I'm sorry, what? Papa say, yeah, you just gotta let it happen. Let what happen? What are we talking about? Because right now, all I see happening is we finna drown, we're gonna die. He said, yeah, no, I mean, well, yeah, it's gonna feel like you drowning, but you're not gonna drown. But that's how she communicate. Who the fuck is she? You better not say her name. Miss Evangeline gonna sit up here and say something, yeah, so because of who Papa family is and how they able to use telekinesis in order for her to communicate here, she gotta drown out the room. Listen, I ain't got time for this shit. I already died once. I just came close to death. And now you telling me I'm gonna have to drown? And she like, no, you just, it's gonna feel like you're drowning, but you're not drowning. You just gotta let it happen. Let what happen? You just gotta let the liquid fill up your lungs. So drown. I gotta drown. Get me the fuck out of here. Oh my God. You want me to be okay with her just flooding the room? has this is normal? And Miss Evangeline and Papa gonna say something. Yeah, it's normal, and it's only one person who drowned. But I mean, it shouldn't happen to you. What? Now I'm even more panicked, because if it's the person who I think they talking about was drowned by Oshun, they had the same type of relationship that me and her got. Oh Lord, Jesus Christ. Somebody other than Oshun, answer a prayer, please. I am literally freaking the fuck out. Like, baby, I'm done for. When I tell you the water is this close from the ceiling, bitch, I am like, oh fuck. Now, as I'm trying to take my last little breaths of air, I see a bluish light coming from down below me. I look down, and the Holy Mother and Papa and Evangeline just standing down there holding court. Why do I have to die in order to communicate with the gods? I don't understand the correlation. Y'all know what my slow ass did. I took a deep breath and I went down. I get to the bottom. She look at me and roll her damn eyes. You know what? If you wasn't a god, boy. Papa and Evangeline just standing there looking at me with the pole little tink tink. Don't fucking patronize me. The Holy Mother standing there, gonna sit up there and say something. Does this appease you? You could have did this the whole time. You just put me through a traumatic experience for what reason? Papa gonna say you not supposed to question the gods. I just got tortured for what? Oshun say, you know what? Listen, just listen. You saw the vampire. You know who he is. Yeah, I know who he is. She said, you know where he at. Yeah, I know where he at. Miss Evangeline instantly alerted. What you mean you know where he is? How do you know him? Kinda, sorta worked for him. Papa and Evangeline is giving pissed off parents. Absolute pissed off parents. And I don't like being in trouble. Papa say, I don't understand. How in the hell, out of all the bad, how you know them? And I'm gonna be real with you. Money get me into some strange places, okay? The things people are willing to pay for you to do, all I'm gonna say is somebody needed a babysitter, but they ain't had no babies. Don't judge me, judge your mammy. Any hoozy. I know where this man live. I know everything about this man's house. I know all the weak points in his security. You want to know how I know? Because while I was there, I made sure that I knew every possible way that I could get the fuck out of Dodge. Do you hear me? Every secret passage, every place that did not have a camera view for the security cameras, every window that actually worked versus being sealed shut or having bars on it, the doors that led to nowhere, the doors that did open, the doors that did not open. I knew it all, okay? I knew it all. And that's when it dawned on me. I knew it all. I know how to get in, and I know how to get out. You could have just asked. You could have just asked me to tell you exactly how to get in and get out. You could have just asked me to tell them how to get in and get out. Why you had to trick me into getting them in and getting them out? Oshun looked at me, she rolled her eyes, she said, if I would have really asked you to go in and show them how to get in and get out, would have really done it? Yes, as long as that meant that I didn't have to go with them. Why can't the guys just ask? My bad, you're gods, you know it all, before it even fucking happened. Which made me fucking sick. Oh my God. Ooh, okay. Oshun say, bite your tongue. Project the damn image that I need you to project so they can understand what they need to understand. I just been through a torturous, tumultuous, hellish 2 weeks. And all of this could have been bypassed if you just would have sat down and said, hey, you got what I need up here, and I'm going to need you to go ahead on and give it to these other people, and we're going to make a full-blown plan,
and ain't nobody gotta die because hello, I died. Hello. Oshu said, yeah, right. And guess who else died? The bad papa. And guess what? The only way that I was going to be able to get you in here for us to be able to get rid of him is if we let him think that he had everything under control. You couldn't know nothing. That's why you don't question the gods. I died! Oshun, mad as fuck, grow 10 feet tall. She touching the fucking clouds. Everything turning black. She bellow at my ass. I know, and I'm going to repay you for it. Shut up and finish the job. Oh, so you did have a real reason for why you put me through so much. Who knew? Oh, wait, I'm sorry, you did. You got it, girl. My bad. Calm down. Papa say, I know I'm not supposed to question you, Holy Mother, but I got a question. Why you get rid of the demon side? She turned and looked at him, shrunk back down to size, all nice and pretty and just soft and blue. Don't say, my son, wasn't ideal that I would break you from the bonds of your father. That was one of the chains. He asks a question, he get nice, Osho. I ask a question, I get bitch. What the fuck? Osho will hold out her hands. Papa and Miss Evangeline take one of the hands. She gets a chanting, and her hands is going, and clearly they're communicating. But why am I being left out?
When I was a kid, I watched a little boy get taken. I just didn't realize it until years later. I think I was around 7 or 8 when this happened, and we used to play outside all the time. We would ride bikes, go to friends' houses. We'd stay outside and just play between the houses until dark. There was this boy that I would see sometimes. He would pop up every now and then. He didn't live on my street, but he would always come alone. I remember thinking he was a little weird, not in a bad way, but just because he was kind of quiet. One day I was riding my bike. It was at the end of my street towards an empty lot, and then that's when I saw him again. He was standing by the curb. He was talking to a man that was in a car. I didn't think much of it at the time. The man was smiling. The boy, he didn't look scared. He just looked a little unsure. I remember slowing down on my bike just enough to watch the situation. The man opened up the passenger door, and I swear I heard him say, "It's okay, I talked to your parents," and the boy got into his car. The car just kind of sat there for a second, and I remember thinking it was a little weird that they didn't drive off right away. The man looked ahead straight as he started to drive off, and the little boy, his head was looking out the window, and he looked at me, and I don't know why I remember that so clearly, but he didn't look scared. He looked more confused, like he didn't know if he made the right decision or not. But the car headed off, and that was that. I went home. I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't think twice about it until a couple of weeks later. There were flyers hung up around the town, and it was of this boy, same face, same clothing. I remember the feeling of my stomach dropping, and I was young at the time. I remember trying to tell myself that it was wrong. My memory was wrong. It wasn't the right kid that was on these flyers. I didn't see him. Kind of talking myself out of it. Years passed. I forgot about it. I went and visited my parents. This was a little more recent, and I was just kind of looking through old boxes of theirs, and I came across one of the flyers. It was folded up, so I unfolded it, and I looked at it again, and I noticed something I didn't notice before when I was younger. And it actually had the location on the bottom of the flyer where he was last seen. I didn't notice that before. And now I know that it was on my street that this little boy went missing. That's when I couldn't deny it anymore, and I told my parents what I saw. They both went kind of quiet, just kind of processing that information, and then my mom said something that made things worse for me, and she said, police did question people, but nobody had any answers for them. So nobody reported seeing anything. And that's where I feel so guilty, because I did. I literally saw it happen. This is the part that I can't explain. Last night, I actually dreamed about this situation. This time, I was same thing on my bike, driving past, and the man was in his car, but this time he was looking at me. It was like the man knew that I was watching. And as he started to take off in the car, the little boy, he also looked my way, and he mouthed something to me. I couldn't hear it, but I could read his lips, and it said, "You saw." And that's definitely my guilty conscience. I woke up right after that, and I just can't help but think if I did say something back then, if the little boy would still be missing.
Might have known the story of real-life boogeyman.
Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, for a hot second, I was getting pretty fucking annoyed because here it is again. I'm being left out of a conversation that clearly I should be a part of. And I know I'm not supposed to question. I know it's a reason why, but bro, you can at least tell me it's a reason why. Like, just be like, you know what? It's a conversation happening. You can't be a part of it because something might get wind of it. And I can't risk that happening. It's still not me knowing, however, you did curve my curiosity just a little bit, because if it's something that I don't need to know because it's gonna mess up something else, I can comprehend that and be like, you okay, you know what, you got it, you'll figure it out. Out the corner of my eye, I see something on a wall move. It's a crack and it's spreading across the wall, and clearly this thing has an objective. Your room is a box, okay? So if a crack in the wall go up, the only other place it could go is across the ceiling. That's exactly what it did. If it went down, it's going to hit the floor. It's going to have to go across the floor, right? That's exactly what it did. As the crack go across the ceiling and the floor, I see that it stops directly above and below pop. I look at the wall, and the wall is starting to crumble. The crack is getting wider, and then all of a sudden, you see smoke and a little red light coming through. Then the eyeball. Oh, fuck no. What the heck? I hear Oshun's voice. She say, you cannot let them break the connection. They are now inside of a blue water bubble. Next thing I know, I feel the weight of a strap, like a quiver strap across my chest. And for those of you who don't know what a quiver is, it is the bag that a bow and an arrow sits in on your back. Yeah, sure as shit stank. I got a whole fucking quiver full of arrow. And it's a big ass blue, gold, and turquoise bow in my hand. In my other hand is a staff. On one end, it looks like a harpy, but it's not a harpy. I don't know the technical name of this creature, but it kind of looked like a harpy, but it's not a harpy, and it's a female, and she looks like a warrior. And then on the other end of it, it's a sharp-ass spear point. Thing is solid gold. What the fuck is going on in the bubble that you just gave me weapons? And what am I finna shoot at? I can't say the proper name of these things, so the closest thing that I could bring it to is a demon lichen. Over 8 feet tall, over 300-some pounds, solid fucking muscle, part humanoid, part vampire, part motherfucking werewolf, with a whole lot of demon. The first one head break through. I shoot it between the eyes. The Holy Mother say, that was quick. You thought I was finna let it get in? Here come another demon lichen thingy, pulled a dead one through the crack, and now he trying to come through the crack. I'ma shoot you too. I can hear them growling on the other side of the crack. Hello, I'm not finna just let you come through this crack. Every time I see something that I can shoot, I'ma shoot it. What the fuck? This is not a movie. I guess they caught on to that, because next thing you know, they start coming through the ceiling. Every single one that fall down from that ceiling crack touch down to the ground, and I shoot it. It's dead. I'm not finna let up. The demons at the wall, it's multiple now, clawing at the wall, trying to open it up. I switch back over. I boop, 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 knock down fast. The ones from the ceiling then broke up and they crack a little bit more, so now they jumping down a little bit faster. And I'm trying my best to keep up, but guess what? I only got one bow, and I can only load it with one arrow. The only thing I can do is play Ring Around the Rosie around this dome by keeping my back to it and shooting around as much as I possibly can and knock them down before they can even leap my way. Somehow, some way, another crack on another wall form I ain't pay no attention to, because I'm trying to take care of the two that's already open. By the time I'm actually hearing footsteps coming from behind me, it's already a little bit too late. I don't know how Oshun was sitting up here paying attention to everything that's going on in the bubble and outside of the bubble, but homegirl saw that some extra shit was coming up behind me, so she decided to, one, throw up a force field so they couldn't get through to me, and then two, she put a utility belt around my waist. Now this is one of them things that I absolutely love, because this is a Barney bag, baby. You don't know what you getting out the bag, but whatever you gonna get, bitch, it's gonna knock them back. I reach in, red vial, throw it, boom, 20 of them, done. Up in flames, huh? I said, yes, I need 3 more. I reach into the bag, I pull it out, boom, 3 more red vials. Oh, you listen? Okay, I like this Bernie back. Boom, 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 I throw it on 3 more pals. They all going up in flames. I say, okay, Mr. Bernie Bag, if you got something that could like go through the cracks and get the ones that's trying to come through before they can actually come through. The belt of the bag got a little bit tighter, like it was squeezing me, like, yeah, girl, I got you. I put my hand in the bag, I pull it out, it's something yellow. I throw it at the wall. Next thing you know, you can hear the things on the side, on the other side. They screaming. I said, oh shit, let me get 4 more of this. I throw it through the biggest cracks because, you know, that's the biggest impact. That's where they're coming through the most. That's where it's going to touch them the most. I'm going to need them to go down before they even get here, okay? We work smart, not hard. Girl, we work smart, not hard. Mr. Barney Bag, I'ma need something that I can make a protection ring out of. Squeeze, weight on the bag. I'm talking about heavy weight on the bag. I reach in, pull out pink salt. Perfect! I made a ring around me and the spear, and then another ring around the spear, so it's a double layer of protection, okay? And then I say to Mr. Bernie Bag, I'm gonna need something that I can seal up these cracks with. Squeeze, some more weight. I pull out a Goya jug. This thing look ancient. When I smell it, it smell like lilacs. And something said, pour me on the cracks. So I did. I took it over to the crack, poured it on there, and it came out looking like, this is gonna sound crazy, but it looked like venom, like the actual little alien being, the little black blob thing. Yeah, real venom, like him. It looked like him in his inky sludge form. He go creeping through the cracks, and you can see like where he creeped at is sealing up, and then it was also healing the room. Next thing you know, Papa Shadows just starts swirling around the spear, and I'm like, ooh, is that good or bad? The flow just get the vibrating. And now I'm thinking to myself, you know, we should stop asking questions, because every time we ask a question, we get an answer that we really don't want. It feel like we're going through like a category 4 earthquake. I cannot stay on my feet. They still in a bubble doing whatever the hell they do. Something behind me gets a growling. I turn around. The growl say, my son, let me in. My son? Oh no! Papa, your pappy at the door. Oh look! Papa Pappy went straight Donkey Kong on the wall, y'all. 1 hit, this bitch is cracking. 2 hits, this bitch is crumbling. 3 hits, I don't know, because Oshun bleeped us the fuck up out of there. Hallelujah. But now I'm confused. I'm confused because weren't we just in Papa's mental space? Like we was here, right? That's so did we just trap his daddy in his mind? Oshun say no, we didn't trap him in his mind. Remember, y'all are special. Your minds are doorways to a different dimension. I put y'all in a different dimension. That's where his daddy is right now. I'm finna go handle him myself in a second. So, literal key? Literal key that unlocks things, because when I ask a question, boom, answer. She do that goofy ass, bravo, you get it. You could have just said that. You literally could have just said that. Why the hoops? Why does everything have to be coded? Why? Well, it can't be easy. Why the fuck not? You make it hard for the people that you don't want the information to get to, not for the people who you do want the information to get to. That's not, you know what? Just, okay, whatever. You got the plan. She turned back to Papa and Miss Evangelina. She say, do y'all have y'all full instructions? Do you completely understand? And they say, yes, we do understand. We're going to prepare now. Oshun say, yeah, no, you can't know nothing. Go home, Roger. Again? You got jokes. Ha 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 ha. You got jokes. I don't want to go home. What do you mean go home? She said, yeah, you gonna go home, take a break, and you just gonna have to wait until the next.
I need to tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal encounters, or scary stories that you'd like to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. I don't know how to explain what happened in that housing unit. Even now, years later, I still don't know if what we saw was real, or if that place just made us believe it was. It happened in Fall River, Massachusetts. a place locals used to call the City of Ghosts. Right at the edge of it sat the infamous Lizzie Borden house, like a reminder that the whole town had always carried something off. But this story didn't happen there. It happened in a housing complex called Watupa Heights, a place that doesn't even exist anymore. The last time I went back, it was just an empty field. Nothing left. But I remember exactly what used to stand there, because when I was 8, that place was my entire world. My cousin Serena lived there, and she was my best friend. We were inseparable. Every summer, we'd spend almost every waking hour outside with the neighborhood kids. Games like Manhunt, Cops and Robbers, Kick the Can. It was a different time. Doors stayed unlocked. Parents didn't worry the way they would now. But even back then, there was always something about that place. Serena used to tell me things. Things that had happened in her apartment. A bulky man that terrorized her sister. A child that supposedly appeared in closets, watching over her like a protector. And a woman in white. Always a woman in white. Every room in that building had its own story, its own thing that lived there. I never really knew what to believe, until one night, when I started to experience it myself. It was a normal game of cops and robbers. I was a robber. Kids counted down, and we scattered in every direction, laughing, running, hiding in the dark corners of the complex. I remember running down a small hill behind Serena's building, trying to find somewhere to hide. I stayed close to her place on purpose, because even though I acted like I wasn't scared, I was. And I always felt safer near her apartment, or at least I told myself I did. That was when I ran into Vanna. She was one of the other kids, also on my team. At least I thought she was. She wasn't hiding. She was just standing there in the open field, completely still, back straight, head tilted slightly to the side, like she was listening to something no one else could hear. I remember walking up to her slowly. "You need to hide. They're going to find you." I grabbed her arm gently to move her, but she didn't react. Not even a flinch. I noticed that her face looked blank, distant, like she wasn't fully there. And then suddenly she snapped out of it, like something inside her had reset. She looked at me and said something that didn't match the moment at all. She asked me to talk to Serena, said something was wrong, that Serena had been acting strange with everyone. I remember feeling confused, but I agreed. And then I felt it. The air changed, cold and sudden, heavy. My eyes drifted upward without me meaning to the second floor of Serena's building. My stomach dropped. Because I don't know why, but I felt like something was there. Something watching. When I turned back to Vanna to answer her, she was gone. Just completely gone. No footsteps, no rustling grass, no sound at all. The field was empty. And for a moment, I wasn't sure if she had ever even been there with me. That's when I heard shouting in the distance. "We found one." I turned and ran, panic hitting me instantly. I cut around the building toward Serena's side, and suddenly hands grabbed my sweater and pulled me hard behind the structure. I almost screamed, but then I saw her, Serena. She was laughing at first. "Got you," she said. But I was shaking and out of breath, and something didn't feel right anymore. I looked at her and immediately asked about Vanna. "She told me to talk to you," I said. "She was acting weird in the field." Serena stopped smiling, and her expression changed instantly. "When did you see her?" she asked. "Just now," I said. "She was right there." That's when everything went quiet. Not the environment, not the kids outside, something deeper than that. Serena looked at me like I had said something wrong without knowing it, and then she said something I'll never forget. She left at the beginning of the game. Her mom called her inside. She walked into her apartment. She never came back out. I felt like I couldn't breathe because I knew what I had just seen. And Serena wasn't confused. She was scared. And then she told me something else. Something that she hadn't told anyone before. She said things had been getting worse. That just that morning, she had been in the bathroom when a woman outside the door whispered her name and told her to come out, but her mother wasn't home. She was at the store, so whoever was calling her couldn't have been real, and yet she heard it. clear as day. And then, right after, she heard the front door open, her mother calling her from the kitchen. Like nothing had happened, like reality itself had shifted. And I didn't know what to say. So I just hugged her, because it was the only thing that felt real anymore. That night, we stayed inside. We tried to forget about it. We ate dinner quickly and tried to act normal, but nothing about the house felt normal anymore. The stairs were directly in front of the living room, and from where we sat, we could see them perfectly, leading up to the second floor. It was almost 1 a.m. when everything got quiet. Serena was next to me on the couch, and just before I drifted off, she grabbed my knee hard and whispered, "Don't turn your head. Just look." My heart stopped. My eyes shifted slowly into my peripheral vision toward the stairs, and that's when I saw her. A woman, crouched at the top of the staircase, long black hair hanging over her face, but one eye, just one, staring directly at us, unblinking. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe properly. Then she slammed her hand on the railing. A loud crack echoed through the room. Serena squeezed my leg so hard it hurt, and the woman started to rise. Slowly, step by step, the stairs creaked under her weight, and it felt like the pressure in the house was pressing in on itself. I remember thinking, she's coming down. And then everything snapped. Serena stood up suddenly and told me not to look. She ran to the front door and flipped the light switch on. Instantly, silence. And the stairs were empty. No woman, no movement, nothing. Like she had never been there at all. Serena grabbed my hand and pulled me into the bedroom, slamming the door behind us. We didn't sleep that night. We waited until morning. And when her parents came home, we told them everything. Later, a monk was brought in to bless the home. And for a while, things calmed down, but they never fully stopped. But the place did. Because now, it's just an empty field.
I don't know why, to be honest with you, this isn't talked about more. Roselyn McInness lived in Oklahoma with her mom, her stepdad, and her brothers. And Roselyn McInness was only 12 years old and in the 6th grade when she walked out of her middle school for the very last time. Growing up, she was always a very happy child. She loved animals, loved music, loved hanging out with friends and meeting new people. Overall, such a wonderful little girl to have around. Yet, things for her changed when she was around 9 years old when her mom met a man called Henry Piet. Henry Piet would be the man that would become Roselyn's stepfather, and Henry was a terrible, terrible man. When they met, Henry also had children of his own, so they kind of bonded over that. They had a lot in common as far as the stage of life they were in. So Roselyn's mother and Henry begin dating. It gets serious. They end up merging their families, leaving Roselyn not only with a new stepfather, but also with step-siblings. And Henry's red flags started showing immediately. He entered Roselyn's life when she was only 9 years old, and only 3 years later, she would disappear. He wasn't a good guy in any capacity, and when they all started living together, he very quickly became demanding, controlling, and very, very angry. And it wasn't long before his anger turned physical, and he would take out his anger on both Roselyn and her mother. And it was bad to the point that people around them would constantly notice them having injuries or bruises all over their bodies. There are conflicting reports as far as how he treated his own children. Some reports state that he was also awful to them, but some say that he wasn't. Whatever the case is, at the end of the day, they were also children, and the environment that Henry was creating was extremely toxic and violent, which no kid should be in. There are also kind of a little bit of conflicting reports when it comes to Roselyn's mother. If you are familiar with this case and know it through and through, please feel free to comment if I missed anything, but she was also absolutely a victim of Henry herself. However, in later interviews, Roselyn speaking now as an adult, she has said that her mother knew that Henry had essayed Roselyn and that she didn't care. She once also did not believe Roselyn when she was little, and she went to her and told her that one of Henry's sons had essayed her. Her mom didn't believe her. So to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure what that dynamic was like. Although later on, we do see that Roselyn's mother did try to escape to get away from Henry and tried to take the kids with her. So I don't know exactly what to make of that, but just thought I should mention it. But because Henry had such a bad temper and he was so noticeably evil, people around them began to notice the way that he was treating Roselyn and her mother. And concerns about their safety were raised very quickly. So what did he do? Well, he just packed up his family and he moved them to a different city without any plan at all. So they were kind of in limbo for a little while, just trying to get money to settle into a new house until they did eventually move into a house in Wagner, Oklahoma. And there, Henry only got worse. The punishments that he would carry out were not only physical, but now also psychological. He was horrible in every sense of the world. There was one time in which Gayla, that's Roselyn's mother, managed to escape Henry. She took all of the children, she fled to Missouri, but he quickly found them and he dragged them all back to Oklahoma. And as you can imagine, for attempting to escape, things only got worse. On a different occasion, CPS stepped in to separate them, sending Gayla, Roselyn, and the children to go stay at a shelter to get them away from Henry. Yet even after that, Henry managed to find a way to get them back, because that's what he always did, because he had such a strong need for control. He craved control. When Roselyn was 11 years old, Henry had his 15-year-old son perform a marriage ceremony between him and Roselyn. Obviously, it wasn't a real marriage ceremony. It was held in the back of a van, but his son acted as both the priest and the witness, and yeah, he married them. If that gives you an idea of how sick and twisted Henry's mind was. January 31st of 1997 was a Friday. According to reports, Roselyn's mother by that point had had enough. Enough was enough. She had officially left Henry after less than a year of marriage, and she had moved into a women's shelter for victims along with the children. But that day, while Roselyn was in school, Henry showed up. He called her over and told her that he was going to be reuniting their family, and he told her to go back into the school and to wait for a sign. That afternoon, Henry sent his son, who was around 18 years old at the time, to pick up Roselyn from school in a small gray pickup truck. Roselyn obviously knew who he was, so she got in the car willingly, and the son then drove her to a hotel room in Tulsa, about 2 hours away. At first, Roselyn was told that her mom was on the way and that she was going to be joining them. But once they got out of town, once they met up with Henry then told Roselyn that that was not going to happen. He told her that her mother didn't want her and that she was now going to be considered a runaway. He also told her that she would be in very serious trouble if she ever did try to leave and go back home to be with her mother. And then he turned to his own children and informed them that 12-year-old Roselyn was now their new mother. Meanwhile, back at the shelter, Gayla has realized that her daughter is missing. As soon as Roselyn failed to show up from school at the time in which she would have already been back, Gayla called the police to report that her daughter had been kidnapped. She knew that it was Henry, or at the very least, she had a very strong gut feeling because she knew what he was like and she knew that he was the type of person to kidnap a little girl. Gayla was going to try and do whatever she could to find her daughter. She would print out posters with her name and her face on them. She would talk about it as often as she could to make sure that people were aware. She would work with authorities and also then turn to the internet to spread awareness, begging and pleading for her daughter's safe return home. But for her and for authorities, it felt like Henry and Roselyn had completely disappeared off the face of the earth. And after about a year, the search slowed down. Roselyn would be held against her will for the next 19 years, and throughout that time, not by choice, she would give birth to 9 babies, all fathered by Henry. It was more than clear that Henry wanted complete and absolute control over Roselyn, and he wanted to treat her as if she was his wife and ultimately as the mother of his children, all for his own sick pleasure. At only 12 years old, Roselyn's days were filled with absolute torment. In the first few days, Henry put Roselyn in a van in which they would be living out of for about a year. They traveled throughout different cities and states in the United States, staying in hotels, ranches, and trailer parks until they eventually decided to cross the border into Mexico in the year 2000. I said they didn't decide. It was all Henry's decisions. He was the only one making decisions. But in Mexico, they found practically an abandoned, empty building with a rotted out floor, no electricity, no water, no anything, and that's where they stayed. Roselyn would beg on the streets for food and money just to have enough to barely survive, because any money that they did have, Henry would use on buying substances. And I guess Henry's tactic to staying under the radar included 3 things. He first changed his own name and Roselyn's name very often, not legally obviously, but he would just start calling her and calling himself different names in an attempt to stay hidden. He also managed to get a hold of different vehicles so they would stay undetected. Henry also wanted authorities to actually truly believe that Roselyn was a runaway and that she had left on her own accord. So every so often, he would drive her back to Oklahoma in his van to have her write letters to mail to her mom, pretending that she had left on her own and that she was doing okay. He drove back to Oklahoma to mail the letters out from there to try and make them believe that she was still in the state. Henry also then forced Roselyn to dye her hair black and to wear glasses to make her unrecognizable. 12-year-old Roselyn McInness experienced SA from her stepfather every single day for years. She was not even 13 years old when she fell pregnant for the first time. She lost that baby, but it was still an extremely traumatic situation for her, given that she was a baby herself. This is a quote from her, quote, "I was scared and I was so confused and I didn't know what was happening. Looking back on what happened to me, I don't even know how any human can do that to a child, what he did to me." At 14 years old, she fell pregnant again, and she was only 15 years old when she gave birth for the very first time. Henry delivered the baby himself in the back of the van after he had taken Roselyn to the hospital and had been told that it was way too early to deliver the baby because they were not ready yet. But like I said, he had such a strong need for control that he wanted the baby out, so he took the baby out. And just the thought of the pain that Roselyn would have been in that traumatizing experience, it is truly incomprehensible. But the SA wasn't the only kind of was put through, Henry still had the same sick and twisted and violent mind that he had always had, and daily he would find a way to punish Roselyn for anything. Roselyn had scars, still has scars all over her head, from her head to her toes, from what he put her through. A lot of those scars being from glass bottles, wood pieces, baseball bats, or cast iron skillets. In the beginning, Roselyn has said that she tried to escape multiple times, that all she wanted to do was run away and cry, but she was not successful, and then she would be punished even worse for it. It got to a point in which Roselyn felt like she had no more to give. To be able to cope, she had to disassociate to protect her mind, and she kind of just became numb until all of the things that were being done to her, everything that was happening to her, stopped registering, because this was her new normal. Quote, "When I was caught, the consequences were great. Eventually, at one point in time, it didn't affect me anymore because I was so used to it," unquote. Fighting back took all of her energy, and she was running out of it. By 2016, 19 years after she had been kidnapped and 9 births later, Roselyn and Henry had landed in Oaxaca in southern Mexico. It was there that Roselyn, who was going by the fake name of Stephanie at the time, met Lisa and Ian at a local supermarket. They were an older married couple who would ultimately be the ones to finally help her escape. One day in early 2016, Roselyn took her children to stock up on groceries at the Oaxaca supermarket. When she went to go check out, she realized that she did not have enough money. Lisa and Ian just so happened to be behind her, and they just so happened to speak English, luckily. They offered to help Lisa pay for her groceries, and then they struck up a conversation. From that very first time meeting, something immediately felt off to Lisa and Ian. Lisa said, quote, "We were in line and they were in front of us. They had 2 giant cars of groceries. One was entirely filled with meat, which the children told us later was only for him," referring to Henry, "and they couldn't pay the bill. They were short on money, so Ian and I just gave them money, and she was grateful," unquote. After that day, Lisa and Ian decided to stay in contact with Roselyn, and they would continue seeing each other at the supermarket every once in a while, and almost every single time, all of the kids were barefoot. Little things like that were so extremely concerning to Lisa. In regards to the kids, she has said, quote, "They were just desperate to talk, not the very youngest ones because they wouldn't say anything until they got to know us, but they just wanted anyone to talk to because it wasn't something that they were allowed to do," end quote. Eventually, things got to the point in which Lisa and Ian befriended not only Roselyn and the kids, but also Henry. I think they were playing it smart. I think they knew that something was off, and they were being nice because they genuinely wanted to be nice and friendly towards Roselyn, but also in order to gain trust. And one day, they went over to Roselyn and Henry's house, and they were absolutely shocked to see the conditions they were living in. The children's sleeping arrangements were absolutely concerning. Quote, "There were 3 stalls, for lack of a better word, all in line with a raw cement floor, and they had holes in the walls for doors and windows, but no doors and windows," end quote. But it was when Henry slipped up that everything changed. Because during a visit, Henry accidentally said that he was 62 years old. Lisa, who knew that Roselyn was 32 years old at the time and had a teenage son, started doing the math. If she was 32 years old and she had a teenage son, that meant that she had a baby when she was a teenager herself, and this man was 62 years old. Something was very, very wrong. As soon as she could be sure that Henry wasn't listening, Lisa went up to Roselyn and she said, "What's going on? I know something is going on. Please let me help you." Together, they then started talking about how she would ultimately escape. A few weeks later, when Henry was passed out, Roselyn took the only opportunity that she knew that she would have, very quietly packed up the things that she had, and with cash that she had been saving up, she called a taxi to take them to Lisa and Ian's home, and she fled with 8 of 9 of her children. Her oldest child had managed to escape because of Henry. He couldn't take it anymore and he just escaped, but they would be reunited later. They made it safely to their house, and after a few days, Roselyn finally told Lisa everything. She told her her real name. She told her that Henry was not her husband, but instead her stepfather, that all of her kids were his, and that he had kidnapped her 19 years ago. Lisa looked up Roselyn's real name, and the first thing that came up was the missing persons poster. And Roselyn broke down and she started crying and telling Lisa that she had waited almost 2 decades for somebody to find her, to notice her, and help her. In July of 2016, Roselyn McInness walked into a U.S. consulate with 8 of her children, told them everything, and finally, after 19 years, she began the process of returning home. Her oldest son was reunited with her shortly after, and they were finally safe. As they started working to make their way back to the United States to start the very difficult process of rebuilding their lives from the ground up, the FBI launched a full investigation into Henry Piet's whereabouts. He managed to be on the run for over a year until September 2017, when he made a critical mistake guy wasn't very smart and attempted to obtain a U.S. passport at the American Embassy in Mexico City. He was arrested on the spot, and on February 25th of 2020, nearly 24 years after the kidnapping, Henry Piet was sentenced to life in prison. He denied everything, by the way, saying that he didn't do anything wrong because Roselyn was his wife, and all he was doing was spending time with his wife. He was saying that he was like deeply in love with her and stuff. Weird. As far as Roselyn's mom, all I could find was that Roselyn was eventually reunited with her mother, but there's nothing specifically mentioning her mom and their reunion. But there are a lot of interviews that Roselyn has since then done, and she says that obviously she's traumatized from everything that she went through. It takes years to heal from something like that, or to even try to begin healing. But she has spoken out and said that they are now focused on replacing all of the bad memories with good memories. Yeah. Strong woman. That is all I have for today. Thank you guys for spending time with me today and for listening to Roselyn's story. Hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.